The woman spilled hot coffee on his white shirt seconds before the most important interview of his life. He was a desperate single dad who needed that job more than air. She ruined everything in that moment, but what she did next changed both their lives forever. Before you keep watching, like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. No. Oh my God. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Her voice shook with panic as she tried uselessly to blot the dark stain spreading fast across the fabric. Her hands trembled so badly she only made it worse. It's okay. Don't worry. His voice sounded calm, but there was unmistakable tension behind it. It was an accident. It's not okay. You have an interview right now. I saw you checking your papers by the elevator. I ruined everything. He looked down at the growing stain and felt his stomach drop. This was his one shot, the only one. How was he going to explain to little Emily that Daddy didn't get the job because he showed up looking like, "How much time do you have?" She cut through his thoughts, voice still high with desperation. 15 minutes. He checked his watch, the weight of responsibility crushing his chest. The interview's on the 12th floor. Wait here, please. Just wait. She bolted before he could protest, leaving him standing in the third-floor hallway, trying not to think about how he'd explain this to his daughter tonight. Emily always asked if he'd finally get the good job, the one that meant she wouldn't have to stay with Mrs. Johnson next door when he pulled night shifts at the grocery store. 3 minutes passed. Each second felt like forever. When she came running back, breathless, she was holding something. Put this on. It's from my locker. It's not perfect, but it'll work. He hesitated, staring at the shirt she offered. I can't take this. You don't even know me. And you've got 12 minutes now. Please. There was something fierce in her eyes, mixed with real guilt that I caused this mess. Let me help fix it. While he changed quickly in a nearby restroom, she waited outside, biting her lower lip, running calculations in her head. She knew the interviewers on the 12th floor, knew exactly what they were looking for, but she couldn't just say it without giving herself away. When he stepped out, she gave him a quick once-over. Looks good on you, better than I expected. Thank you. Seriously, I don't know how to repay you. She shook her head, still looking miserable. Look, I know this is weird, but... She paused, choosing her words carefully. I overheard some people saying the company really values experience with sustainability and green projects. If you have anything like that on your resume, definitely bring it up. He frowned, surprised. Actually, I ran a recycling program at my last job. Cut costs by almost a third. Then definitely mention it. They love initiatives that save money. You work here? HR, she said quickly, already changing the subject. You should head up. 9 minutes left. And the shirt? Return it whenever, no rush. She managed her first small, nervous smile. Good luck. He nodded, still processing the whirlwind of the last few minutes, and ran for the elevator. Alone in the hallway, she leaned against the wall and closed her eyes. 2 things terrified her right then. First, that he wouldn't get the job because of what she'd done. Second, that he would, and eventually find out who she really was. Emma took a deep breath. That was the name she'd chosen, the one she'd used for the past 2 years, not the one printed on corporate plaques or magazine articles about family, succession. Emma, the entry-level HR assistant who started from zero, who showed up early and left late, who proved her worth with every report, every successful hire. She looked at the coffee stains still on the floor, grabbed a paper towel and started scrubbing while she scrubbed. She thought about the man she'd just met in the worst possible way. There had been something in his eyes when he mentioned the interview, not just professional nerves, but deeper fear. Fear of letting someone down. She knew that feeling well. 3 floors up, Alexander sat in the waiting area, trying to calm his nerves. The borrowed shirt smelled faintly of women's perfume and fresh detergent. It felt strange wearing a stranger's clothes, but better than showing up with a giant stain. Alexander, a middle-aged woman, called his name. You can come in now. He stood, smoothed the fabric, and walked in. 3 people waited behind a sleek table. Introductions, handshakes. The interview began. Tell us about your most relevant experience, the man with glasses and a serious face asked. Alexander started talking about his previous job, the responsibilities, the challenges, and then, remembering the woman's words, he mentioned the sustainability project that I implemented a full recycling and waste reduction system. In 6 months, we cut operating costs by 32% and reduced our carbon footprint by half. The three interviewers exchanged glances. The woman leaned forward. That's exactly the kind of initiative we value. Can you elaborate on the challenges you faced during rollout? While Alexander spoke, feeling the interview flow better than he dared hope, Emma was 3 floors below, pretending to work while her heart raced every time someone walked past her door. She had quietly checked the schedule. The interview was supposed to last 30 to 45 minutes. 43 minutes later, her desk phone rang. Emma, can you come to room 1205? We need to process a new hire. Her stomach nodded. Room 1205 was where his department interviewed, but process a new hire didn't automatically mean it was him. When she arrived, only the hiring manager, Sarah, was there. We have an outstanding candidate. Need you to get the paperwork ready. He starts next Monday. Of course. Name? Alexander. Amazing sustainability experience. Exactly what we needed. Good thing he brought up that recycling project on his own. Shows initiative. Emma felt relief so strong she had to steady herself on the desk. I'll get everything ready. That night, Alexander hugged Emily so hard she squealed and laughed. Daddy, you're crushing me. Sorry, baby. Daddy has big news. You got the job. I got the job. Start Monday. Emily jumped and screamed with joy, throwing her arms around him again as he held her. Alexander thought about the woman who had spilled coffee on him. He still had to return the shirt, and if he was honest with himself, he wanted to thank her properly. There was something about her, the genuine guilt in her eyes, the fierce determination to help a total stranger, that intrigued him. While Emily chattered about telling all her friends, Alexander decided Monday wouldn't just be his first day on the job.it would also be the day he found the coffee woman. Emma was in her tiny apartment, so different from the mansion she grew up in, staring at the coffee stain on her own blouse. She hadn't had time to change after the accident. Sarah had called to confirm Alexander was hired. The initial relief had given way to a new, unexpected worry that he'd be working in the same building, that he'd probably look for her to return the shirt. And then, how would she keep the necessary distance? How would she stop him from finding out? Worse, why did part of her not want to? She shook her head, annoyed with herself. 2 years building an independent life, proving she didn't need the famous last name, the money, the connections. 2 years documenting every win, every successful project, every improvement. So one day she could walk back in and say, see, I did it on my own. A man with a daughter and his own problems was the last thing she needed in her carefully built world. But as she tossed the stained blouse into the laundry basket, Emma couldn't stop thinking about the relief on his face when she'd offered help, or the fear in his eyes when he checked the time. Monday was going to be interesting, very interesting. And maybe, just maybe, more complicated than she could imagine. Because in her 26 years, Emma had learned that the simplest moments, a spilled cup of coffee, a kind word, a helping hand, had the power to change everything. She just never imagined how much. Monday arrived with a mix of anxiety and hope. For Alexander, it was the first day at the job that would change everything. For Emma, it was the day her carefully ordered world would start to crack in ways she never saw coming. Have you ever had that feeling that something huge is about to happen? That pit of your stomach flutter that isn't quite fear but isn't just excitement either? Like the universe is whispering that nothing will ever be the same. Alexander felt it when he kissed Emily goodbye that morning. Emma felt it when she changed outfits 3 times before settling on one. You gonna be okay with Mrs. Johnson? Alexander asked his daughter while they made breakfast. Yep, she said she's teaching me how to bake cookies today. Emily smiled, but her eyes showed worry. You gonna like the new job? I'm gonna love it. And you know why? Because now I can give you everything you deserve. I just want you to be happy, Daddy. Those words echoed in Alexander's head the whole commute. Happiness. When was the last time he'd even let himself think about it? Since his ex-wife walked out, leaving him alone with a little girl and a mountain of debt, happiness had felt like a luxury he couldn't afford. Survival was the priority. But that morning, walking the halls of the new company, Alexander allowed himself a sliver of hope. Emma had arrived an hour early, as always. That was her ritual: be the first one in, review the day's processes, make sure everything was perfectly organized. Control was what kept her grounded. Emma, the new hires start today, Sarah reminded her the second she walked in. Can you handle onboarding? Of course. How many? 5. 3 at 8, 2 at 9. Alexander is one of the 8 o'clockers. Emma's heart raced, but her face stayed neutral. Years of training to hide emotion finally paying off. When Alexander walked into the training room with the other 2 new hires, his eyes found hers instantly. He smiled. A real, tired, grateful smile that lit up his whole face. Emma took a deep breath and slipped into professional mode. Good morning, everyone. My name is Emma, and I'll be handling your onboarding today. We'll spend the next 2 hours together. She walked them through policies, procedures, benefits, company culture. Alexander watched her closely, not just absorbing the information, but trying to understand the woman in front of him. She was different from the frantic, guilty person from the accident. Here she was confident, articulate, and shockingly knowledgeable about every detail of the company. Let me share something important, she said at one point. The way we start something new sets the tone for how we continue. First impressions aren't everything, but they matter. In that moment, Emma was setting the standard. Flawless professionalism, safe distance. But standards are made to be broken. If you have any questions in your first few days, feel free to find me. I'm usually on the 3rd floor, office 304. When the other 2 new hires left, Alexander stayed behind. I needed to thank you again, he started. You literally saved my life the other day. I was just fixing my own mistake. Emma replied, keeping her tone strictly professional. It was the least I could do. You didn't have to run and find a solution. You didn't have to give me that sustainability tip. It made the difference. Emma felt heat rise in her neck. She'd given that tip because she knew the interviewers, because she had access to the ideal candidate profile. But he couldn't know that. I'm glad it worked out. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have more new hires coming soon. Of course. Just one more thing. He handed her a neatly wrapped package. Her shirt, washed and ironed. My daughter insisted I include a thank you note. Emma took the package, fingers brushing the paper. Tucked inside with a colorful paperclip was a note in childish handwriting. Thank you for helping my dad. You're nice. Emily, something tightened in Emma's chest so hard she had to look away. Tell her thank you from me, she managed, voice softer. Alexander noticed, smiled gently, and left. Emma stood alone with the package in her hands and a storm of feelings she wasn't ready to name. The following days established a strange little routine. Alexander would find Emma in the hallways, sometimes on purpose, sometimes by accident, and always had a question. How does this procedure work? Where's the finance department? What's the best way to approach my supervisor? Emma answered, always professional, always helpful, always emotionally distant. But something was shifting. You have to understand, relationships are built in tiny moments. Not grand gestures, but quick hallway conversations, shared smiles, small kindnesses repeated day after day. That's how people slip into our lives without asking permission. By week 3, Alexander casually mentioned he was struggling with his direct supervisor. He has really high standards, Alexander said, near a different coffee machine on a different floor, but still coffee. Emma knew exactly who the supervisor was. She also knew, from turnover reports she'd processed, that the man had a history of pushing new hires out during probation. 4 people in the last 6 months. He values initiative, Emma said carefully, and meticulous documentation. If you document every process and result from day 1, you'll be ahead of the game. Document how? Create an achievement log. Every finished project, every solved problem, every piece of positive feedback. It feels like extra work, but it'll save you during reviews. Alexander studied her a beat too long. How do you know so much about this? It's my job to know the company, Emma answered, but the way she glanced away gave her away. Here's a truth I've learned watching countless stories unfold. Protecting the people we care about is an instinct we can't switch off, even when we should. Emma was trying to keep distance, but every tip, every piece of insider knowledge pulled her closer. At the end of the first month, the first truly alarming incident happened. Emma was reviewing benefits packages when her phone rang from the company's partner hospital. We have a child here. Emily, father works for you. Can you locate him? Emma's blood turned to ice. What's the father's name? Alexander. She didn't hesitate. She ran to his department, found him in a meeting, and, ignoring protocol, knocked hard. I need to speak to Alexander. It's urgent. She saw the instant panic in his eyes when he saw her in the doorway. "Your daughter is in the hospital. Not critical," she added quickly, seeing him go pale, "but you need to go now. On the way to the parking garage." Alexander was shaking. "What happened?" "She was fine this morning. I should have noticed something. I should have. You couldn't have known," Emma said firmly, walking beside him. "Kids get sick suddenly. It happens. I can't lose her. She's all I have." The raw vulnerability in his voice broke something inside Emma. Without thinking, she touched his arm. "You're not going to lose her. I'll call the hospital. I'll activate the premium health plan. I'll make sure she gets the absolute best care. Just go, Alexander. Go." For the next few hours, Emma worked like a woman possessed. She activated benefits most employees didn't even know existed. She called specialists. She made sure Emily was moved to the top of every list. When Alexander called 3 hours later, his voice was thick with emotion. It was just an asthma attack. "She's stable now." "But Emma, the care she got." "The doctor said someone from the company pulled special strings." "The company takes care of its people," Emma said simply. "It was you, wasn't it? I know it was you." Emma didn't answer. "Why?" His voice dropped to almost a whisper. "Why are you doing all this?" "Because I know what it's like to grow up with no one who truly cares," she thought. "Because I see something in you that makes me want to be better. Because when I look at your daughter, I see a little girl who has what I never did. A dad who loves her unconditionally. Because it's the right thing to do," was what she said. That night, alone in her apartment, Emma finally admitted to herself what she'd been denying. She cared. She cared. About Alexander, about his fight, about his daughter, about the fundamental decency that radiated from him. And that terrified her. Have you ever felt like you were standing on the edge of a cliff, knowing one more step would change everything? Emma was on that cliff, and the scariest part of her wanted to jump. The second month brought more frequent, more personal conversations. Alexander started sharing stories about Emily. Emma, carefully, shared small truths about herself, truths that didn't reveal her identity but were real. "Do you have family?" he asked one day. "Complicated," Emma answered. "We're distant, by my choice. They don't understand my decisions, so I decided to prove my worth alone." Alexander looked at her like he understood perfectly. Sometimes family is heavier than support. Exactly. In that moment, sharing that tiny truth, Emma realized she was building something real with him. Not based on lies, but on partial truths that were still authentic. And when Emily visited the office for the first time, running straight to Emma and hugging her legs, shouting, "You're the lady who helped at the hospital," Emma felt her heart break and rebuild at the same time. Because in that smiling child and that honest man, Emma saw something she'd never imagined finding. A chance to be loved not for what she represented, but for who she chose to be, and that was worth every risk. The third month brought subtle but significant changes. Emma noticed she started looking for Alexander in hallways, that her heart raced when she saw an internal message from him, that she smiled involuntarily thinking of something funny he'd said. It scared her deeply. Have you ever tried to control something clearly beyond your control? It's like trying to hold water in your hands. The tighter you squeeze, the faster it slips away. Emma was discovering that feelings don't follow strategic plans or meticulous documentation. One morning on the third floor, she heard raised voices from a conference room. One of them was Alexander. "I triple-checked everything. The numbers are correct." "Your numbers contradict Gustavo's report," the supervisor said coldly. "That someone's wrong. And you're the new guy here." Emma paused, pretending to check her phone while listening. "With all due respect, sir, I can walk you through every figure. I have full documentation." "Documentation you conveniently prepared alone. No, sir. Direct pulls from the system. I can show the transaction history." Long pause. Do it by end of day. If you're right, we move forward. If you're wrong. The threat hung in the air. When Alexander left the room, his face was tight but determined. He saw Emma, and something in his expression softened. "You heard?" "Some of it. You okay?" "I will be. I documented everything like you suggested. I've got proof." "Then you'll be fine," Emma said with more conviction than she felt. She knew Gustavo, she knew his tactics, and she knew the supervisor well enough to know he favored longtime employees. That afternoon, Emma did something that broke every rule of professional distance she'd set. She accessed the system and pulled Gustavo's reports for the past several months. What she found made her furious. Small, consistent inconsistencies, numbers tweaked here and there, always to make his own. Results look better. Nothing obvious enough to trigger alarms immediately, but a clear pattern to anyone who knew where to look. She couldn't just hand the information to Alexander, that would be too obvious. But she could create a situation where he discovered it himself. Emma prepared a routine internal audit report, something she did regularly, and made sure it included Alexander's department. Then, casually, in a hallway conversation, your department is getting a routine audit this week. Standard procedure, nothing major. But you'll have access to historical comparative reports. Might be useful context for your own data. Alexander looked her in the eye a beat too long. You're helping me again, I'm doing my job. Emma said. He stepped closer. Why do you care so much? She could feel his warmth, smell the faint coffee and something uniquely him scent. For one dangerous second, Emma wanted to tell him everything. Because you deserve fairness, she said finally. And because I've seen too many good people hurt by unfair internal politics, it wasn't the whole truth. But it was true. Enough that in the days that followed, with the audit reports in hand, Alexander not only proved his numbers were correct, he uncovered Gustavo's discrepancies. The issue was escalated. Gustavo received a formal warning. Alexander unintentionally earned a reputation for being meticulous and honest. You knew, Alexander said when he found Emma the following week. It wasn't a question. I suspected systemic inconsistencies. Emma answered carefully. The audit confirmed. You saved me again. You saved yourself. I just gave you tools. Here's something you need to understand about relationships. They're built in layers. First surface trust, then practical trust, then emotional trust. Alexander and Emma were dangerously close to crossing from the second layer to the third, and then came the phone call that changed everything. Emma was in a meeting when her private cell buzzed relentlessly. She normally would have ignored it, but something made her check. It was a number she hadn't seen in 2 years. Her father. Her blood froze. He never called. He sent lawyers, assistants, representatives. Never himself. Hands shaking. She excused herself and answered in an empty hallway. Hello. We need to talk. The voice was the same one that haunted her childhood nightmares and dreams. Strong, commanding, inflexible. We have nothing to talk about. I'm in the building. 20th floor, executive boardroom. You have 10 minutes. I'm not coming. Emma Estella Carter, her real name. Not Emma Smith, the HR assistant. You really thought I wouldn't find out where my daughter was? The world stopped spinning. How did you? 10 minutes. He hung up. Emma leaned against the wall, legs weak. 2 years. 2 years building a separate life, proving her worth, documenting every achievement. 2 years that had just imploded in one phone call. She rode to the 20th floor feeling like she was walking to her own execution. The executive boardroom was everything she remembered from the world she'd left. Glass, steel, stunning city views, and in the center, her father. More gray in his hair than 2 years ago, but the same posture. Absolute power personified. Sit, I'd rather stand. It wasn't a request. Emma sat more from exhaustion than obedience. What do you want? To know why my daughter is playing at being poor when she has access to millions. I'm not playing. I'm living. Living? He laughed without humor. You're working a job that pays what I spend on corporate lunches. Living in an apartment smaller than my closet. That's not living. That's childish stubbornness. It's my life. Built by me. Without your name, your money, your expectations. And you think you've proved what exactly? That you can survive in the real world. He leaned forward. You're working in my company, using my resources, living under my corporate roof. You didn't escape me, Emma. You just changed floors. The truth of it hit like a punch. I didn't know it was your company when I started. But you found out and stayed. Why? Emma had no answer. Or she did, but wasn't ready to admit it. I came to make an offer. Her father continued. Come home. Take your rightful place in the company. I'll publicly acknowledge everything you've accomplished these past 2 years. You get the recognition you always wanted, earned on merit. In exchange, you stop this fantasy. You become who you really are. I am who I choose to be. And that choice includes that man, the single father 3 floors up. Emma felt the blood drain from her face. You're spying on me. I protect my investments. And you, whether you like it or not, are an investment. That man has debts, a spotty work history until this job, and a daughter to support. You think this is love? It's opportunism. You don't know anything about him. That I know everything. That I know his ex-wife left 3 years ago. That I know he's had 4 jobs since. That I know he owes $6,000 in medical bills for his daughter's asthma. And I know, very conveniently, he started getting close to you right after he was hired. That he doesn't know who I am. Not yet. But he will. And when he finds out you're the owner's daughter, how long do you think it'll take him to realize what doors that opens? Emma stood, shaking with fury. You're projecting. Just because you only see transactional value in people doesn't mean everyone does. I see the world as it is. You see it the way you want it to be. There's a difference. That I'm not coming back, and you can't force me to know, but I can fire him today. A single father, unemployed, no health insurance for his asthmatic daughter, no prospects, because once I spread the word he was let go from my company. No one will touch him. Emma felt tears of frustration burn her eyes. Why would you do that? To protect you. Because that's what parents do, even when their daughters are too stubborn to see it. That's not protection. That's control. Call it whatever you want. You have 24 hours. Come home and he keeps his job. Continue this fantasy and he loses everything. That's blackmail. That's reality. Something you've avoided for 2 years. When Emma left that room, it felt like the floor had been ripped out from under her. Everything she'd built, everything she'd proved, suddenly felt fragile and meaningless against the raw power her father wielded. She spent the rest of the day on autopilot, processing paperwork without seeing it, answering questions without hearing them. And then, at the end of the day, Alexander appeared in her doorway. You okay? You seemed off all day. Emma looked at him, at his genuine concern, his natural kindness, his fundamental honesty, and knew she couldn't let him lose everything because of her. Alexander, we need to keep our distance. He blinked, clearly stunned. What? Professional distance. This is getting complicated. Complicated how? I work in HR. You're an employee. It's not appropriate. Emma, what happened? Nothing happened. I just realized we're crossing lines we shouldn't. He stepped into the office and closed the door behind him. I don't believe you. It doesn't matter if you believe me. It's the way it is. Look at me and tell me you feel nothing. Emma forced herself to meet his eyes. I can't feel anything. Not like this. Not now. Why not? Because my father will destroy you. Because I'm a walking lie. Because the closer you get, the more danger you're in. Because it's wrong. That was what she said. Alexander studied her for a long moment, then said softly, you're lying, not about your feelings, but about the reasons. Alexander, please. Whatever's going on, whatever the real reason is, I'll respect your request. He turned to leave, then paused at the door. But when you're ready for the real truth, the whole truth, I'll be here. Because whatever you're carrying alone, you don't have to anymore. When he was gone, Emma finally let the tears fall. That night was one of the longest of her life. She sat in the small apartment she loved, surrounded by the life she'd built, and faced the impossible truth. She had fallen in love. Fallen for the man she'd met in the worst possible way. For the father who loved his daughter more than anything. For the dedicated professional who documented every small win. For the honest man who saw through her defenses, and now she had to choose between protecting him and being with him. Because the painful truth was, she couldn't have both. Her father had given her 24 hours, and 24 hours she had to decide. Her independence or his safety, her truth or his future, her heart or a clear conscience. Emma looked at the documents she kept. Meticulous records of every project, every achievement, every proof she'd done it alone. 2 years of work. 2 years of evidence. Then she looked at the notes still tucked in her wallet. Emily's childish handwriting. You're nice. Small actions create big results. That's what she'd always believed. That brick by brick, choice by choice, she would build something meaningful. But what if some choices required tearing down everything you'd built to protect what truly mattered? Emma didn't know the answer, but she knew she had until tomorrow morning to find it, and whichever choice she made, someone would get hurt. The only question was, who? Emma didn't sleep that night. How could she? Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Alexander's face when she asked for distance. She saw Emily smiling, trusting. She saw her father, unyielding in his power. At 5 a.m. she gave up, made coffee she couldn't drink, and sat in front of her laptop staring at a blank screen as if answers might appear. Have you ever faced a choice where every option feels wrong? where no matter what you decide, someone you love gets hurt. It's a particular kind of loneliness because in the end only you can make the call and only you will carry the weight. Emma thought about calling Alexander and telling him everything. But what would that solve? He'd be furious about the lie, and her father would still have the power to ruin him. Telling the truth would just add betrayal to the list of problems. She thought about confronting her father. Again, begging for another way, but she knew that man. He didn't give second chances. He didn't back down from ultimatums. She thought about running again, new city, new name, start over for the third time. But that would mean abandoning Alexander without explanation, leaving him vulnerable and proving her father right. She was just playing at Independence. At 7 a.m. her phone rang. It was Sarah. "Emma, can you come in early? We have a situation." Her heart stopped. What kind of situation? Surprise audit. Executive level wants to review all HR processes from the last 18 months. They specifically asked for you in the meeting. Emma closed her eyes. Her father wasn't waiting 24 hours. Of course he wasn't. He was forcing the issue, turning up the pressure, pushing her into a corner. "I'll be there in 30. When Emma arrived, the building felt tense. Employees whispered in hallways. External consultants walked around with folders and laptops. And on the 20th floor, in the executive boardroom, the trap waited. Her father was there, of course. Also 3 external consultants, the HR director and Sarah, who looked completely lost. "Emma, please sit," the HR director said, voice professional but strained. "This is a routine audit, but we need your full cooperation." Emma sat, face neutral despite the internal panic. Her father didn't look at her directly, but she felt his presence like a physical force. "We'll start with recruiting processes over the last 18 months. One consultant said, opening a laptop. "Specifically, we want to understand the criteria used for candidate selection." The next 3 hours were a microscopic examination of every decision Emma had made, every hire, every promotion recommendation, every process she'd touched. And then, inevitably, they got to Alexander. This candidate, the consultant pointed at the screen, was hired despite an irregular work history, multiple short-term jobs. Why was he selected? Emma took a steadying breath. He met the technical qualifications. Proven sustainability experience, which was the department's top priority. References were excellent. The multiple jobs were explained by legitimate personal circumstances. And you were involved in the selection process. I processed all candidates during that period. But you weren't on the interview panel. No. Still, there's a note here. The consultant zoomed in. An informal recommendation from you suggesting the interviewers specifically ask about sustainability project experience. Emma's stomach sank. She had written that note, an innocent reminder at the time. But under scrutiny, it looked suspicious. "I make recommendations based on the profiles requested by departments," Emma said carefully. "In this case, sustainability was an explicit priority. And you knew this candidate before the interview?" Here it was, the moment of truth. "We met briefly on the day of his interview. It was accidental." "Accidental how?" Emma felt every eye in the room on her, especially her father's. "I accidentally spilled coffee on him. I offered help to minimize the damage before his interview." Heavy silence. Then one consultant said that wasn't documented in the process, because it wasn't relevant to the hiring decision, only a 2-minute interaction based on an accident and an apology. The questioning continued. Every interaction between her and Alexander was dissected. Every decision questioned. When it finally ended, Emma felt drained and exposed. "We'll need to review this further," the lead consultant said. In the meantime, "Emma, you'll be temporarily removed from any processes involving the employee in question. Understood?" When everyone else left, her father finally spoke. "You have until end of day today, not 24 hours. End of day. You're destroying my work. I'm protecting you from destroying your life. Making my last 2 years look corrupt? How is that protecting me? The consultants won't find anything wrong because there is nothing wrong. Your processes are impeccable. I already checked." He stood, finally looking her in the eye. "But he will find out today. When the auditors start asking questions about you, he'll dig and he'll discover who you really are. And then you lose the chance to control the narrative. He'll find out from outside sources, feel betrayed, manipulated, and you'll lose both him and your professional credibility." Emma hated that he was right. Unless, her father continued, "You take control now. Tell the truth on your terms. Accept my offer. Turn this mess into a story of recognized merit." And he keeps his job, even gets a promotion if he wants. Transfer to another branch, obviously. Far from you, you both move on. It's better this way. Emma left that room feeling the world collapsing around her. She went down to the third floor on autopilot, walked into her office, closed the door, and finally let herself feel everything. Anger at her father, at herself, at the impossible situation. Fear of losing Alexander, of losing her independence, of losing everything she'd built. Deep, crushing sadness, because she knew, deep in her heart, there was no good way out. That a knock pulled her back. Emma? It was Alexander. Can I come in? She quickly wiped her eyes and straightened. Come in. He stepped inside, and she saw immediately that he knew. Maybe not all the details, but he knew something serious was happening. The auditors asked me questions about you, he said without preamble. About our friendship. I know. They suggested you might have favored me in the hiring process. I didn't favor anyone. You were hired on merit. I know that. But they don't seem convinced. He took a step closer. Emma, what's really going on? She wanted to tell him, God, how she wanted to, but the words stuck in her throat, trapped between fear and shame. It's complicated. Then uncomplicated. Talk to me. I can't or won't. Both. Alexander pulled up a chair and sat, clearly not planning to leave. Let me tell you something about me, he began. When my ex-wife left, she didn't just walk out. She told me I'd never be enough, that I was weak, unambitious, a failure as a provider. And the worst part of me believed her. I looked at him, seeing the raw vulnerability in his eyes. I spent 3 years believing she was right. I took jobs I hated, accepted humiliation, settled for scraps because I thought that's what I deserved. He leaned forward. Until I met you. You saw me not as a desperate failure, but as someone with potential. You gave me tools, knowledge, opportunities to prove my worth. Alexander, let me finish. You helped me reclaim something I thought I'd lost forever. Faith in myself. And now I see you destroying yourself with secrets, isolating yourself out of fear. And I need to return the favor. I need you to have faith. Not in me, but in yourself. The tears she'd been holding back started to fall, and if the truth destroys everything, then we rebuild together. You don't understand how big this is. Then help me understand. Emma looked at this man, honest, kind, strong despite every hardship, and made the most terrifying decision of her life. My name isn't Emma Smith. She saw the confusion on his face. It's Emma Estella Carter. I'm the owner's daughter. The silence was deafening. She watched the emotions cross his face. Shock, confusion, anger, hurt. You lied? He finally said, voice low and controlled. This whole time you lied. Yes. Why? Because I ran away from my family 2 years ago. I changed my name, my appearance, my entire life. I got this job without knowing it was my father's company. When I found out, I was already too invested in proving I could succeed on my own. And what was I in all this? A project? A way to prove something? No, you were. Emma struggled for words. You were the most real thing that's happened to me in years. But the closer we got, the harder it became to tell the truth. Hard how? My father found out about you. About us. He gave me an ultimatum. Come back to the family and take my place, or he fires you today and makes sure you never work anywhere decent again. Alexander stood, running hands through his hair. So all of this. The audit, the questions. It's about forcing us apart. It's about control. He wants me back under his thumb, and you're the leverage he's using. And you, what do you want? I want you safe. I want Emily to have the life she deserves. I want you not to lose everything because of me. That's not what I asked. He turned to face her directly. What do you want, Emma? Not as a daughter, not as an employee, you. And there it was, the question she'd been avoiding from the beginning. I want you. She whispered. I want to wake up and not have to lie about who I am. I want to get to know Emily. Better. I want to build something real that isn't based on fear or control. But I can't have that because having that means destroying you. Alexander was quiet for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, he laughed, a short, humorless sound. You know what's ironic? I spent 3 years thinking I wasn't enough, and now I find out I fell for someone so far out of my league. She's literally the boss's daughter. You're not out of anyone's league. You're incredible. Alexander. You're an amazing father, a dedicated, professional, a good man. Anyone would be lucky. Then why does it feel like we're on opposite sides of a canyon? Because we are. And I don't know how to cross it. That moment his phone rang. He checked it, and his face changed instantly. It's Emily's school. I have to take this. Emma watched him talk, saw worry grow on his face. I'm on my way, he said, and hung up. Emily had another asthma attack. Worse this time. They're calling an ambulance. Go. Emma said. We're not done. Your daughter needs you. Go. We'll deal with the rest later. He hesitated, then nodded and ran. Alone again, Emma picked up her phone and made a call. Dad, I accept. Wise decision. But with conditions. You're not in a position to make demands. I am. Because you need me as much as I need you. You want a legitimate successor who actually earns the respect of the employees. I've proved I can do that, but not as a puppet. I'll do it as a partner. Continue. Alexander keeps his job, no transfers, no demotions, no retaliation. The audit finds exactly what it should, impeccable processes because they were impeccable. And you give me real autonomy. I'm not coming back as a figurehead. I'm coming back as a decision maker. Long pause. You've grown, her father finally said. Fine. We have a deal. One more thing. I tell Alexander on my terms, in my time. You already told him? She didn't answer, but the silence did. How did he take it? With justified anger? He'll get over it or he won't. Either way, it's no longer my concern. Her father hung up. Emma stared at the phone, feeling the weight of what she'd just done. She'd sold her hard-won freedom to buy Alexander's safety. But it was the right choice. She grabbed her things and went straight to the hospital. She found Alexander in the waiting room, head in his hands. How is she? He looked up, startled to see her, stable. They're keeping her a few hours for observation. Is there anything I can do? You've already done so much, he said. And there were layers upon layers in those words. Emma, I need time to process all this. I understand that I don't think you do. You didn't just lie about who you are. You let me open up, share my fears, my life, my daughter, while keeping this massive secret that I know, and I'm sorry, or just sorry you got caught. The question hurt because it held truth. Both, Emma admitted. Sorry I lied. Sorry. You found out this way. But never sorry I met you. I need to focus on my daughter right now. I need you to go. Alexander, please, Emma, just go. She went, because it was what he needed, because she'd already done enough damage. That night in her empty apartment, Emma finally let it all collapse. She cried for lost innocence, for broken trust, for the life she might have had if she'd been brave from the start. But as the tears fell, something else hardened inside her, determination. She'd made a deal with her father, bought time and safety, but the game wasn't over. Because in those 2 years of independence, Emma had learned something crucial. She was stronger than she thought, more capable, more resilient. Losing Alexander, maybe for now, but that didn't mean she'd lost the war. It just meant the strategy had to change. And Emma had always been exceptional at strategy. Her phone buzzed. A text from Alexander. Emily is asking for you. She wants to say thank you. Emma held the phone to her chest, letting those words fill her with hope that a little girl who still wanted her around, a man who, despite everything, hadn't cut contact completely. Small actions, big results. Maybe, just maybe, there was still a way across the canyon. But first she had to learn to stand on her own 2 feet. And then, when she was ready, she'd teach the others that bridges aren't built overnight. They're built one plank at a time, with patience, honesty, and the courage to rebuild what was broken. And Emma had a lot of rebuilding ahead of her. 3 days passed in tense silence. Emma honored her side of the deal. She publicly revealed her true identity and accepted an executive-level coordination role. The news exploded through the company like wildfire. Have you ever felt constantly watched? Every glance a judgment, every whisper an accusation? That was Emma's life now. The hallways she once walked with comfortable familiarity had become minefields of curious stares and hushed comments. But something interesting happened. The audit her father ordered came back with results no one expected, except maybe her. The recruiting and management processes led by Ms. Carter over the past 18 months demonstrate not only exemplary compliance but measurable improvements in efficiency of 40%. The lead consultant presented in an open meeting. Employee retention increased, turnover costs dropped, and overall satisfaction improved significantly. Emma sat in the room, each word feeling like vindication. Her father beside her kept his expression neutral, but she caught something in his eyes, surprise, respect, maybe both. Specifically regarding allegations of favoritism, the consultant continued, We found no evidence of nepotism or compromised processes. All hires followed strict technical criteria. If anything, Ms. Carter demonstrated higher standards than her predecessors. After the meeting, her father pulled her aside. "You really did it all yourself. It wasn't a question that I told you I would. You just didn't believe me that I underestimated you. That doesn't happen often." "Maybe it should," Emma replied. "Maybe you should consider that the people around you have more to offer than you allow." He studied her for a long moment. "You're going to be hard to control. I'm not going to be controlled at all. I'll be a partner. Or I'll be nothing." To her surprise, he smiled, a small, genuine smile she hadn't seen since childhood. "Your mother would be proud." The mention of her mother, gone 5 years, hit Emma like a punch. She blinked back tears. "She would have supported me when I left, that I know. She was always better at letting go than I was." He hesitated, then placed an awkward hand on her shoulder. A gesture that spoke more than words. "Try with that man, Alexander. If he's half of what the audit says professionally, and half of what I see in your eyes when you think of him, then he's worth fighting for. You said he was an opportunist. I said a lot of things. Not all of them were true. Some were just a scared father talking." Emma looked at this powerful, inflexible, but also human and flawed man, and for the first time in years, she saw her dad. "I don't know if he'll forgive me." "Then find out. You spent 2 years proving your professional worth. Now prove your personal worth." Trying was easier said than done. Alexander avoided her. When they had to interact professionally, he was curt. The wall between them was almost visible. Emma threw herself into work. She used her new position to roll out programs she'd been secretly planning for months. She created work-life balance policies. She established emergency funds for employees with children. She turned her pain into purpose. And then, 3 weeks after the revelation, Emily showed up in her office. "Aunt Emma!" Emma looked up and felt her heart squeeze. The little girl stood alone, holding something. "Emily, what are you doing here? Does your dad know? He's in a meeting. Mrs. Johnson brought me because I begged." She held out a piece of paper. "I made this for you." Emma took it with trembling hands. It was a child's drawing, 3 stick figures holding hands. A tall man, a little girl, and a woman. All smiling. "That's us," Emily explained. "A family." Tears came before Emma could stop them. "Sweetheart, it's beautiful. But your dad and I, we're not. Why not? How do you explain complex adult relationships to a child? How do you articulate wounds of trust, secrets, fear? It's complicated." Daddy said the same thing. Emily climbed onto the chair beside Emma's desk. "But I think grown-ups make everything complicated. You like each other. I like both of you. Why can't it be simple?" "Because I made mistakes. I hurt your dad. Did you say sorry?" "I did. And do you love him?" The direct, innocent question hit Emma square in the chest. "Yes, very much." "Then fight for him," Emily said with the seriousness of someone twice her age. "Daddy says important things are worth fighting for, and you're important." Emma pulled the little girl into a hug, allowing herself this pure moment of connection. "When did you get so wise?" "I always was. Grown-ups just don't pay attention." A voice from the doorway interrupted. "Emily, what are you doing here?" It was Alexander. His expression was hard to read. Worry, surprise, and something Emma couldn't name. "I came to visit Aunt Emma. I brought a drawing." "You can't just leave like that." Mrs. Johnson was worried. "But she brought me after I begged so much." She gave in. He stepped into the office, keeping careful distance from Emma. "Come on. We need to go home. Can I come visit again?" Alexander looked at Emma, and in that moment she saw the pain he still carried, the betrayal that still stung, but also the beginning of healing. "We'll see," he said finally, after they left. Emma pinned the drawing on the corkboard behind her desk. Every time she looked at it, it reminded her. Some things are worth the fight. Days turned into weeks. Emma worked tirelessly, proving her value not as an heiress but as a professional. She earned respect. Slowly, not from everyone, but from enough to make a difference, and she watched Alexander from afar. She saw how he excelled in his role, how other employees sought his guidance, how he built a reputation on real competence. Then came the moment that would change everything again. Alexander's ex-wife came back, demanding shared custody. Emma learned about it through Sarah, who mentioned casually that Alexander had requested some days off for legal matters. "He's handling it alone," Emma asked, trying to sound casual. Seems like it. He said he didn't want to bother anyone. That night, Emma did something that broke every professional distance rule Alexander had set. She went to his office after everyone else had gone home. He was still there, surrounded by papers, looking exhausted. Alexander, he looked up, startled. Emma, what are you doing here so late? Could ask you the same. Preparing documents for your lawyer? Court is in 2 weeks. Let me help. I don't need help. Yes, you do, and I can provide it. She walked in, determined that I have access to corporate legal resources. I can prepare high-level character references. I can document your professional stability in ways that carry real legal weight. Why would you do that? Because Emily deserves to stay with the dad who loves her. Because you're an incredible father. And because she took a deep breath, because I still care. Even if you want nothing more to do with me, I still care. Alexander was quiet for a long time. That I never said I wanted nothing more to do with you. Emma's heart leapt. You didn't? I said I was angry, that I was hurt, that I needed time. He leaned back in his chair. That I never said I stopped feeling anything. And now, I still feel that that's the problem. That I feel so much it hurts. Because I want to trust you again. Emma. That I want to believe everything we shared was real. But how do I know? How do I separate truth from manipulation? Emma pulled up a chair and, for the first time in weeks, sat close to him. Do you want the full truth? No edits, no protection. Yes, when I spilled coffee on you, it was a genuine accident. The panic was real. The help I offered was pure instinct. I caused a problem and wanted to fix it. Go on. The sustainability tip, that was intentional. I knew the interviewers knew what they wanted and felt guilty enough to give you every possible advantage. So you manipulated the process. I gave you information you used on your own merit. Your experience was real, your qualifications were real. I just pointed the spotlight where it belonged. And after the advice, the help with my supervisor, the hospital, every bit real. Because somewhere between the spilled coffee and the second week on the job, I started caring for real. Not as a project or proof, as a person. When you realized, when Emily got sick and I saw you terrified in that hallway, something in me broke and rebuilt at the same time. That I heard a man who loved his daughter more than life and wanted to protect that. Protect both of you. But you still didn't tell the truth. And oh, because the longer it went, the more impossible it felt. How do you say, oh, by the way, I'm the owner's daughter, sounds completely insane. And the longer I waited, the worse it got. You had so many chances. I did, and I let fear win every time. Fear of losing you, fear of losing the life I'd built, fear of being reduced again to just a last name. Emma felt tears burning. The irony is, trying not to lose you is exactly how I lost you anyway. Alexander was quiet, processing. I need you to understand something, he said finally. When my ex left, she destroyed my ability to trust. It took years to rebuild, and then you came along. And for the first time since then, I wanted to trust again. I wanted to believe someone could really see me and stay. I see you. I always did. But you never let me fully see you. The real you? The question silenced Emma because she knew the answer. No, not completely. And I'm so sorry. I'm sorry too, he sighed. But here's the truth I've figured out these past weeks. Even angry, even hurt. I still dream about you. I still look for you in hallways. I still want to share every little win, every worry about Emily, every random thought. Alexander, let me finish. Emily asks about you every single day. When are we going to see Aunt Emma again? Does Aunt Emma still like us? And I don't know what to tell her, because I'm asking myself the same questions. The answer is why is all of it? Yes. Then help me trust again. Not with big promises or declarations, with honesty, transparency, time to rebuild what broke. I can do that. Emma said, hope blooming for the first time in weeks. We can do that together. Step by step. They worked that night preparing court documents. Side by side, no drama, just focused cooperation to protect Emily. And in that simple work, they began to rebuild the bridge. The next 2 weeks were an exercise in patience. Emma prepared legal documents that showed Alexander's stability, his dedication, his professional growth. She used her now public position to add weight to the recommendations. When court day came, Alexander walked in with a confidence he hadn't had before and walked out with full victory. Full custody maintained, parental rights reaffirmed. The first thing he did was call Emma. We won. I knew you would. No, we won. You made this possible. You made this possible. I just documented the truth. Pause. So, Emily wants to celebrate. She's demanding pizza and ice cream. Would you like to join us? Emma closed her eyes, gripping the phone. I would love to. That night was the beginning of something new. Not the intense secret romance of before, but something more solid, more honest. Emily talked non-stop, telling school stories. Alexander smiled more than Emma had heard in weeks, and Emma, for the first time since everything exploded, felt truly part of something. Aunt Emma, Emily said between pizza bites. Now that Daddy won, can you be our real family? Alexander choked slightly. Emily, it's not that. Why not? The little girl insisted. You like her. She likes you. I like both of you. It's simple math. It's a little more complicated than math, sweetheart. Emma said gently. Grown-ups always say that, Emily replied. But in the end you either choose to be together or you don't. She looked between them. Seriously, so choose. Alexander met Emma's eyes across the table. In that look she saw everything. The pain still there but healing, the anger fading into understanding, and above all, the feeling that had never truly gone away. It's a daily choice, Alexander said, still looking at Emma. Not something you decide once. It's waking up every day and choosing again. And today? Emma asked softly. Today I choose to try me too. Emily clapped like she'd orchestrated the whole thing, and in her innocence, maybe she had. The months that followed were gradual rebuilding. Emma took on more responsibility at the company, always with full transparency. When she made decisions that affected Alexander's department, she disclosed it openly. When there was a conflict of interest, she recused herself. Alexander thrived in his role. He earned a promotion based purely on merit, reviewed by an external panel to ensure fairness. And slowly, date by date, conversation by conversation, moment by moment, they rebuilt trust. There were hard moments. Time's old wounds reopened, arguments about transparency, boundaries, expectations. But there were also moments of light. Emily teaching Emma to bake cookies. Alexander and Emma collaborating on a project combining sustainability with HR development. Family dinners that became weekly tradition. 1 year after the coffee accident, the company held its annual results presentation. Emma stood on stage, now officially part of executive leadership. This year brought significant changes. She began, voice clear and confident. Not just in structure or profits, but in culture. We implemented family support programs that reduced turnover by 30%. We created emergency funds that helped 43 families. We launched sustainability initiatives that cut costs while benefiting the planet. She paused, scanning the audience, finding Alexander's eyes in the third row, Emily beside him. But more important than numbers is what we learned as a community. That real success isn't built on lies or manipulation. It's built on honesty, even when it hurts, on transparency, even when it's inconvenient, and on second chances, when they're earned and deserved. After the presentation, while everyone mingled, her father pulled her aside. You're transforming this company, he said. Not just managing, transforming. I'm doing it my way. I know. And it's better than my way ever was. He glanced toward Alexander and Emily, waiting for her. He's good for you. He is. And so is she. Your mother would have loved being a grandmother. The comment surprised her. You're really accepting this. I'm learning to let go. It's taking time, but I'm trying. He squeezed her shoulder. You taught me that. That control isn't protection. That trust isn't weakness. Emma hugged her father, something she hadn't done in years, and felt the family wounds finally start to heal too. That night, the three of them, Emma, Alexander, and Emily, went back to Alexander's modest apartment. Not the Carter mansion, not some fancy new place, but the small, honest home that represented what they'd built. Aunt Emma, Emily said while getting ready for bed. Remember the drawing I made of our family? Of course. It's framed in my office. Well, I made an updated one. She held out new paper. This one had more details, colored windows on the house, bright sun rays, and written carefully at the top, chosen family, Emma read aloud. Because you chose us? Emily explained, and I chose you. Not because we have to be family, because we want to be. After Emily fell asleep, Emma and Alexander sat on the small couch in comfortable silence. She's too wise. For her age, Emma said. Always has been. Sometimes I think she's raising us more than we're raising her. Alexander, Emma turned to face him. 1 year ago, when I spilled coffee on you, I was terrified I'd ruined your life. You ruined my shirt, she laughed. But seriously, he continued, you didn't ruin anything, you complicated everything. Then you simplified it in ways I never expected. You challenged me to be better, work harder, trust deeper, even when I lied, especially after I stopped lying. Because it showed that even from ruins we can rebuild. He took her hand. It wasn't perfect, but it was real, and real is better than perfect. Have you truly forgiven me? I'm forgiving. It's a process, not an event. Some days are easier than others, but every day I choose to try. And tomorrow, what do you think tomorrow's choice will be? He smiled, that slow smile she'd learned to love, the one that lit up his whole face. Tomorrow I choose you again, just like I chose today, and will choose the day after. That's a big commitment. Good, because I'm tired of small ones. They kissed, not with desperation or urgency, but with something deeper: promise, commitment, trust rebuilt brick by brick. You see, there's a truth I've learned from all the stories I've shared with you. Happy endings aren't about perfection. They're about imperfect people choosing to work through imperfection. Emma didn't become a flawless heroine. Alexander didn't magically forget every hurt. Emily still had tough moments. The Carter family still had tensions. But they had something more important than perfection. They had conscious choice. The choice to show up day after day, to communicate when it was hard, to forgive when it hurt, to build something new from the ashes of what was broken. 10 years after that coffee accident. Exactly 10 years. The company held a special ceremony. Emma was launching a professional development program designed specifically for employees who, like Alexander once was, had potential but needed real opportunities. This program, she announced to the packed audience, is built on the fundamental belief that people deserve chances. Not favoritism, not charity, but genuine opportunities to prove their worth. Alexander stood beside her on stage, now co-director of the program's sustainability component. When I started at this company, he said in his speech, I was desperate, not just for a job, but for a chance to prove I was worth more than my past suggested. Someone gave me the chance. That he looked at Emma, and in front of colleagues, executives, press, he said, and that chance changed my life. Not because it made everything easy, but because it challenged me to be better than I thought possible. After the ceremony, while everyone celebrated, Emily, now taller, still wise, pulled Emma aside. Aunt Emma, can I ask you something? Always. Do you ever regret everything that happened? The lies, the pain, the hard stuff? Emma thought carefully before answering. That I regret the pain I caused, the mistakes I made, the choices that hurt people I love. She hugged the girl. But regret the result of having you and your dad in my life? Never. Good, because I don't either. Emily smiled. And can I tell you a secret? Of course. I told everyone at school you're my real aunt. Not by blood. By choice. And that it's better. Why is it better? Because blood is an accident. Choice is love. That I in that moment, Emma fully understood what she'd spent 10 years trying to prove. Worth doesn't come from a last name, money, or connections. It comes from the choices we make, the people we choose to love, the bridges we build, the ruins we turn into foundations. That night, in their new apartment, bigger than the first but still modest, Emma, Alexander, and Emily shared a simple dinner. Pizza again. Because some traditions are worth keeping. Accidents. Alexander toasted with soda. New beginnings. Emma added. Chosen family. Emily finished. And there, in that perfectly imperfect moment, surrounded by love earned through honesty and forgiveness, Emma finally understood. She didn't need to prove anything to anyone. She was enough. She always had been. She just needed to learn to believe it. And sometimes learning that requires spilling coffee on a stranger, lying too much, facing family demons, losing everything, and rebuilding piece by piece. Because the best stories, the real ones, the ones that matter, are never about avoiding mistakes. They're about learning to rebuild after them and building something even stronger, something authentic, something chosen, something